This is the problem. When our team doesn't trust us because they don't know us and we don't know them, then we can't cultivate a culture of collaboration. When we don't know our teams, we can't delegate tasks without micromanaging. When we don't know our teams, we can't support their mental health and well-being. When we don't know our teams, we can't find effective methods for boosting their motivation and their engagement. When we don't know our teams, we can't manage team conflict well. When we don't know our teams, we cannot thrive in leading a hybrid workforce.
Hi there, I'm Vanessa Kaiser, a ranch girl turned social worker, business leader, and now entrepreneur. I'm passionate about diving into organization, leadership, personal growth, and efficiency. Around here, we call it rhythmic living, that continuous cycle of assessing the season of life that we're in and creating habits, routines, and processes that serve us best. This show is for the busy, the dreamers, the tired, the go-getters, those who want to live fully, grow steadily, and feel inspired each day. Welcome to the Inspiring Heights podcast.
Have you ever sat next to a stranger on an airplane and about 20 minutes into the flight, you turn to them and you start to lay out a game plan for which they are a significant part for bypassing the 100 other passengers sitting in front of you in order that you might get off the plane first upon landing so as not to miss your connection flight? And then as they're just blankly staring at you, you hand them a jersey that matches yours. You smile at them and say, "Thanks for having my back, old chum." Are you blinking really fast right now? No? Don't worry, me neither. I am for sure the girl who gets on an airplane and promptly puts my headphones on. I am just here to get to my next destination, not to make friends. Now, to be clear, I wish I was an airplane friend-making kind of gal, but it's just not in my nature. And truth be told, I don't even like airplanes that much. I avoid them at pretty much any cost. But listen, we're not here to get lost in all that. We are here to talk about how knowing our teams has a direct impact on our ability to lead them. Hey, you. Can I ask you something? Does your to-do list ever feel like it's running you instead of the other way around? Do you find yourself wishing for more time, less chaos, and a whole lot more peace? Trust me, I've been there. And that's exactly why I created the Productivity Playbook, Strategies for a Harmonious Life. This course isn't about cramming more into your day. It's about creating a life that actually feels good to live. We'll dive into time management strategies that work, build routines that bring peace instead of pressure, and tackle those overwhelming moments with confidence. Whether you're juggling work and family, managing a business, or just trying to stay sane in a busy season, this course is here to help you take a breath, take control, and build a present and fulfilling life. Ready to take the next step? Head over to inspiringheights.org/courses and grab your spot in the Productivity Playbook today. Because a harmonious life isn't just possible, it's waiting for you. Let's do this together. I'll link this all for you in the show notes. I worked at the accounting firm for several months before I was invited into the role of firm administrator. And when I first started, I only knew about 5 people there. In my role as a process enhancement specialist, it was important for me to get to know the team, but I wasn't leading any of them. No one reported to me. I wasn't responsible for the growth, the well-being, or the productivity for anyone besides myself. But that all changed when I stepped into the administrator role. All of a sudden, over 20 people were reporting to me. I was responsible for all of their well-beings, their growth, and their productivity. And I quickly realized that I didn't really know them well enough to lead them. I didn't know their quirks. I didn't know their motivation. I didn't know how they liked to be complimented. I didn't know their coffee orders. I didn't know how they spent their free time. I didn't know their work ethic. And they didn't know me. So while we had passed one another in the halls and made friendly small chat around the coffee pot for the past 10 months, I felt like I was that person on the plane who was asking a stranger to help a sister out. It was awkward, and it proved to be semi-unproductive. See, the whole "I respect you because you're my boss" notion will only carry us so far. Will our team take a request from us? Probably. Will they listen when we give them a directive? Perhaps. Will they follow us into uncharted territory through change, storms, and uncertainty? No. Not if they don't know that they can trust us. And can we blame them? I mean, we're no different, are we? When we don't know our boss, when the trust factor isn't in the picture, our willingness to follow is also greatly diminished. It's kind of like the whole seatmate stranger on an airplane thing. Will we move for them if they need to get up and go to the bathroom mid-flight? Of course. Will we put on a matching jersey and run interference for them to get off the airplane first upon landing? I'm going to go with probably not. And here's where we can tend to get a little tripped up. We can start to believe that the significance of really knowing our team is only important when it comes to the big stuff. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there because, after all, I can get to know someone in an instant. When we have a big change in software, when we are going to merge with another company, go through a big round of layoffs, start outsourcing some of our work to other countries, move into a new building, completely change our business processes, then I will make sure that my team feels known and supported by me. But until then, we'll kind of move through our days status quo. They'll work hard, I'll work hard, and it'll be fine. This is the problem. When our team doesn't trust us because they don't know us and we don't know them, then we can't cultivate a culture of collaboration. When we don't know our teams, we can't delegate tasks without micromanaging. When we don't know our teams, we can't support their mental health and well-being. When we don't know our teams, we can't find effective methods for boosting their motivation and their engagement. When we don't know our teams, we can't manage team conflict well. When we don't know our teams, we cannot thrive in leading a hybrid workforce. Knowing our teams doesn't just come in handy in an extra heavy season. It comes in essential in day-to-day functioning. Before we get too in the details on ways that you can help to know and be known by your team, let's start with debunking a few myths. Myth number 1, and probably the biggest one I've told myself and that I have heard from other leaders. I don't have time. I don't have time. If they can't learn to trust me and lean in, then they need to get off board. I don't have time to hold their hands. I am busy. I wish I hadn't said those things. I wish I could tell you that I've only ever heard those harsh words uttered from the mouths of terrible leaders. But it's not true. In my administrator role, I was carrying a super heavy load. My days were fully booked from the time I got into the office until I left. I'm talking 10+ hour days on a very regular basis. So the idea of stopping to take a staff out for coffee just so I could get to know them as a human and not just someone who worked for me, well, it made me a little crazy sometimes. When we would keep running into the same problem over and over again when it shouldn't be happening, I had to face the reality that perhaps, like a child with an overly busy parent, they were just looking for a little attention from their boss. P.S. That image breaks down if you take it too far, so, don't. The raw truth of it is, it felt hard to justify chit-chat when it meant that I had to sacrifice somewhere else, either in getting, quote, real work done or in getting home to my family at a decent hour that night. And therein lies the heart of our first myth. Getting to know our team isn't, quote, real work. Therefore, I don't have time to fit it in. When we walk this back, we can quickly see the flaw in this line of thinking. Do we need to know our team in order to help them learn? Yes. Do we need to know our team in order to help them grow in their career? Yes. Do we need to know our team in order to retain them as a long-term employee? Yes. I am willing to bet that I would be hard-pressed to find a leader who doesn't agree with these statements. And if all of that is true, then doesn't that mean getting to know our team is of high importance? It's, as the kids these days say, mission critical. Oh, look, I think I just had a 2 p.m. slot open right up in my calendar. Myth number 2. If I get to know my team on a deeper level, it will lower their respect for me as their boss. My gracious, this myth is hard. It's hard because there most definitely are lines that we do not want to cross as a leader. And there are lines that once we cross, it's hard to return from them. So the fear that surrounds our relationship with our employees is a real one. Here's the thing though. When you go to counseling, you want that counselor to do two things, right? Validate and then help you move forward so that you are no longer held back by the shackles of those chains. You heard me validate, right? Good. Now let's keep moving. Acknowledging the lines are helpful. Knowing what your specific lines are critical to both staying clear of crossing them while still building a relationship with your team. The problem is, so often our lines are really vague. They exist because we know that they should, but if we were asked to identify how far is, quote, too far in building relationship with our employees, we typically can't even answer that because honestly, we haven't given it much thought. The truth is, the answer to those questions are different for everyone. It's different based on your personality. It's different based on the team that you're leading. It's different based on the industry that you're in. Is hosting a team Christmas party at your house crossing a line? It may or may not be, depending on the circumstances. Is gossiping to one specific team member about another team member crossing a line? Well, yes, it is, every single time. See, we fear the line because we haven't identified it. Once we call it out and we know where it is, we can build a really solid plan for engaging our teams in a meaningful and healthy way. Myth number 3. If I get to know my team, it will be harder for me to correct and or pursue disciplinary action with them should the need arise. I'm going to circle back on the kids metaphor for just a second. I want to be really clear. I'm not insinuating that our team members are like our kids. Okay, it just so happens that this is a nice metaphor for the topic at hand. Have you ever had a kid at your house for, say, a few hours that wasn't your own? Like maybe a friend drops them off for a play date, or your niece or nephew come over for a few hours while their parents are running errands. Do you notice how difficult it is to correct them when they're doing something that could be dangerous or could damage something that you don't want damaged? It's hard because you don't know them like their parents know them. Sure, we know who they are, we know what their favorite color is and maybe their favorite TV character, but if they respond best to a stern no or a playful, oh, we don't do that in Unless's house, that remains a mystery. Until or unless we spend a significant amount of time with them and begin to understand how they're wired. Once we know that, we are much better able to meet them where they are and in a more impactful way. The same is true for our teams. When we know what motivates our teams, when we know if they're going to take gentle direction better because they can't stand to have people mad at them, or if a direct and more firm approach is the only way that they will respect us, when we know how they function and make decisions, then and only then are we equipped to help them pivot when pivoting is due. If I take a one-size-fits-all approach to correction and discipline on my team when I am leading an Enneagram 2 and an Enneagram 8, I've just lost the game. One of them for sure won't respect me. And without respect, we have very little traction. We don't discipline our teams for fun, right? We do it for their good and for the good of the business. And if that is true, then don't we want to know how to do it well? And if the only way that we can do it well is by getting to know our team, then shouldn't we prioritize that? Before we go further, can we take a moment to acknowledge something together? All 3 of those myths were about us. Our time, our emotions, our hard decisions, us. It wasn't really about our teams. Here's what I know. If you are taking time to listen to a leadership podcast, you likely desire to be a great leader, one that prioritizes their team and their needs while holding sturdy boundaries, understanding that those boundaries serve your team just as well as they serve you. So if that's true, why do we put a lot of excuses, mostly that are us-centered, in front of really doing the work of getting to know our team? Here's my working philosophy. Subconsciously, we don't really know how to get to know our teams. And it's easier for us to live in the excuses above than it is to really consider some practical and meaningful ways to dive in. It took a long time and a lot of trial and error for me to learn some of those meaningful ways to get to know my team. And I am pumped to share them with you. So let's dive in and fill your tool belt so that we can drop the excuses and really get to know our teams. If you spend any time around Inspiring Heights, you know that I am all about finding tools and processes to make life just a little easier. What can I say? I'm obsessed with efficiency. So here's the real scoop. When I first started seeing freeze dryers online, I dismissed them. Too expensive, too big, and what would we even use it for? Seems like an awfully big investment for some freeze-dried bananas. But as time went on, I saw internet friends using their freeze dryers in amazing ways, like creating soup in a jar that just needs water to transform into a delicious and nutritious meal on a busy night. My curiosity grew, and last December, we decided to take the plunge. Let me tell you, this is one purchase that I have zero buyer's remorse for. The freeze dryer has been a game changer for meal prep, saving money and reducing waste. For example, I can buy a 20-pound bag of onions, chop them all up at once, freeze dry them, and not have to cut another onion for actual months. Sure, freeze drying might seem like a homesteading trend at first glance. I thought the same thing. But after using the Harvest Right freeze dryer, I am more convinced than ever that it is a tool almost anyone could benefit from. Whether it's batch prepping ingredients or creating meals that just need water to be ready, this machine makes life simpler and definitely more efficient. If a freeze dryer sounds like the solution for your busy life, check out Harvest Right. They have options to fit different needs and budgets. Visit my affiliate link, affiliates.harvestright.com/2639, or click the link in the show notes. If you're thinking about getting a freeze dryer, now's the time. To help ease the winter blues, Harvest Right is offering up to $900 off, making it easier than ever to get started. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Just head over to affiliates.harvestright.com/2639 to learn more and grab your discount. I'll have all of this linked for you in the show notes. Tool number 1, you have to meet with them. I'm sorry, I know you were probably hoping I wasn't about to tell you to put one more meeting on your calendar, but the truth is you cannot get to know an individual person if you never spend any one-on-one time with them. I do have some helpful tips for making this a little easier though. First, be realistic about how often that you need to and are able to meet. Keep in mind, this will change in different seasons. When I first became the firm administrator, I really needed to get to know my team. So I scheduled one-on-one meetings with each individual team member one time per month. However, like I said, I had over 20 people reporting to me at that time. So monthly meetings with each individual staff member was a heavy load that I could really only handle for about 6 months. And then I had to scale it back. Here's my point. Assess your season, assess the relationship, and make a plan that fits the needs of both. And if it changes, if the frequency needs to go up or go down, that's okay. It's not a failure. It's a win to be living in your season. Second tip, set a timer. No, I'm not kidding. Just trust me on this one. When you start meeting one-on-one with your team with the full intention of getting to know them better, you will inevitably have some team members that show up ready to tell you about their life. And yeah, we want that to be sure, but no, this meeting cannot last for 2 hours. I always felt like a grade A jerk for cutting people off. So for a while, meetings would last way longer than I really had the margin for. That made me a bad listener, and it made me dread the meetings with that person. And ultimately, it ended up not being a win for either of us. Here's what I learned. I either needed to stack meetings back to back, giving the meeting a very natural hard stopping point, or I needed to set a timer that was visual for both the attendant and myself in order to help us stay on track and in on time. This wasn't foolproof, but It was always, always easier than either cutting someone off because, quote, their time was up, or setting through a 2-hour conversation that I didn't have room for in my schedule. Taking away the fear of the ending helped me to show up for these meetings fully present and ready to listen. Tip number 3, have an agenda. Here's the deal. Some people are talkers and some people aren't. Either way, having an agenda to help guide the conversation will be a friend to both you and your staff. Keep the agenda the same each time and ask them to come prepared to discuss whatever's on it. Of course, this meeting is about getting to know your staff, but that doesn't mean that there's no work talk involved. Talking about work is a great way to learn about your team member. What's bugging them? What's inspiring them? What conflicts are they walking through? What do they need from you? And then I always like to put a little something fun on there that was a more personal. What's your favorite hobby outside of this place? That kind of thing. Okay, second tool for the tool belt. Start staff meetings off with a quick personal question and allow each staff member at the table 30 to 60 seconds to share, and then get down to business. I started doing this first with my administration team. This was dual purposed. One, that we had a lot of admins sitting in different places that didn't necessarily see each other each day. This was one way for them to connect and feel known, not just by me, but by one another. Another reason was that we were running into situations where people were trickling into the meeting, and then someone would start a very, very lengthy personal story that would bleed into the first 15 minutes of what was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. Not wanting to be a joy kill, I had to figure out another solution to help us stay on track. Starting the meetings off this way brought connection and would usually only take about 5 minutes. And I will tell you, that is 5 minutes well spent. A couple tips on this tool. Go ahead and pull a list of questions together all at once. No need to feel frantic about finding your question going into a Monday morning meeting. Second, if you want the answers to stay short, don't ask extensive questions. We're going more for questions like, what was the number one most relaxing thing you did this weekend? Versus, tell us about your great-grandparents' story. One more quick tip. If you have a group of talkers and you find that each person staying within their time limit is getting hard, set a timer. Let the timer be the jerk that cuts them off. Third tool for the tool belt. Schedule team growth meetings once a quarter, and as said meetings, discuss topics such as these. How do you like to feel appreciated at work? How do you like to be praised when you've done something outstanding? What are your biggest work pet peeves? When you need correction and/or a team member is struggling with you, how would you like to be approached with that information? What's your vision for a successful team in this environment? Where do you feel like our team is growing? These types of questions are super helpful for you as a leader to know the answer to, and they are also very helpful for each individual team member to know about their teammates. They get past the surface and down to the heart of the team and each individual member who makes it up. Tool number 4, be an active listener and work to remember the important stuff. My sister had a roommate in college who was an incredible listener. I was just a young pup when I first met her, probably 12, 13 years old, and you better believe I was a talker. I remember seeing her once, talking her ear off, and then months later seeing her again. She seemed to recall all that was important to me in our first conversation. I never forgot how that made me feel. So seen, so valued, so heard. And the truth is, as humans, we all long for that. And it's a super simple way to connect with your team. When someone mentions something to you like, oh, I send my daughter off to college next week and I am so sad, write it on your calendar and bring her a cup of coffee that morning. Let her know that you remember this is an emotional day for her and you care enough to lean in. When someone says something like, I have a doctor's appointment coming up and I'm really nervous, mark that date on your calendar, send a little message before the day and let them know that you're thinking about them in their upcoming appointment. And if they ever need a place to process, your door is open. If it really is open. If it's not, just leave that part out. That's okay too. When we listen and we remember, not just say we will, but we actually show them with our actions that we do, We go a long way in making our team feel seen and heard and valued. And when our team feels seen and heard and valued, it makes it so much easier to continue to grow in connection and trust with them. Tool number 5, figure out your boundaries in terms of what's appropriate to share about yourself and start talking. This is not a doctor-patient relationship, and if we treat it as such, we should expect the same results. Our team will only tell us the bare minimum, and depending on the question, the answer may or may not be all that truthful. In order for there to be depth in relationship, we also have to be willing to share. Our team needs to know that they can relate to us. I'm not saying we go and share our deepest secrets or our problems at home or our political agendas. What I am suggesting is that we have to give some information in a conversation in order to promote connection. Tell a funny story every now and again. Share your hobbies, talk about your dreams, show them that adorable picture of your puppies. Be a real human, not a robot, and you'll see your relationship with your team grow. Friend, we agree. We wouldn't get on an airplane and ask a complete stranger to do us a big favor and blindly follow us. Let's not do that with our teams. We owe it to them to lean in, to invest, and to get to know them as the delightful and unique humans that they are.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Do you have questions, comments, or insights on today's content? I would love to hear from you. You can DM me on Facebook or Instagram, or head over to our website, inspiringheights.org, and click on the Contact Us form. I will link all those locations here in the show notes. P.S. If you haven't already, I would love for you to leave a 5-star rating and a quick review of the podcast. This helps get our content in the hands of new listeners. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and follow us on social media for rhythmic doses of inspiration. All right, friends, take a deep breath and be inspired where your feet are. Bye for now.